word. Most would have probably met him through his word before they actually met his physical presence. So I have to go back just a little. And many probably remember what we call the Yellow Book. And you got that book and had to stay up with it for hours on end. I mean, literally all night reading that book, finding out about yourself, and then your relationship with Yahweh. I'll tell my story because it's very vivid. I was young. I was actually in college at the time. Right after I read the book, Yahweh was actually coming to the city. That was to the city of Tampa. And I can remember being in a classroom and a professor was doing a lecture. And it was an open glass. And I could look outside the window and I could see some disciples and followers of Yahweh because they were in full white. And at that time, of course, I was not wearing culture. I literally got up because I'd heard of Yahweh, but never had the opportunity to meet him, and left the professor's class. He said, "Excuse me, where are you going?" I said, "I have to be excused." "You're going to excuse me, I have to be excused." So I walked out during his lecture, and I saw the representatives of Yahweh, and they were pointing out the fact that he was actually going to be speaking in person that night at the armory. So it's kind of funny because I basically just left that class, walked out, met them, even though I knew he was coming, just the fact, thinking, is he possibly with that group? But he wasn't in that group. But he was later that night. And now that evening, I can remember, was my first time physically meeting Yahweh. And I say physically because there's a distinct difference you have to understand about Yahweh. Because when you read the scriptures, the Son of Man, clothed in the garment down to the foot, girded about the paps with a golden girdle, his head and hair is white like wool. Yahweh was that to the T. So when you see him physically, he matches the physical description. And when you get to hear him teaching, his voice being of the sound of many waters, I mean, he's of all people, but he's all in one package. Yet, after that performance, when you get the opportunity then to walk up and meet him in person in close proximity, you get to shake his hand or you get to embrace him. And it's kind of like in awe because when you get that close, he had a magnetism or a charisma. He was very charismatic, but the closer you get to him, it's kind of like electricity, where you can feel the attraction, and you kind of become speechless in his presence. But I was thinking, and I had questions in my mind that I wanted to ask him, and his response was, I'm trying to remember it. I remember the encounter vividly, but I'm trying to remember the words. And the words were something to the effect of, I know you think you know who I am, but that's not me. You need to consider continuing to study me. And I'm like, I know people have said he's kind of, be careful what you think about Yahweh, because he's very clairvoyant. He will pick up on your thoughts. So you don't want to have any negative thoughts around him, because he's going to pick up on them. And before I could open my mouth, he answered the question that was coming out of my mouth, but then let me realize that who I thought he was, that's not who he really was. Because it was more than about him physically being, according to that description that's in Revelations, but he was deeper than that. Yet, when I actually was able to embrace him, it's like you find out that he's a person, he's a living being, he's a man just like I'm a man, yet he's so much more. So that first encounter left me with, when I thought I knew all about him, I realized I had no clue who it was that I just met, other than I have met a divine being, and what I thought I understood him to be, he was so much more than that. So after all of this time of studying and at this point, we can share people with people in the book and talk to him about Yahweh and Yahweh, I realized I need to go back, because what he told me is, what you think about me, that's not me. So it took some time in my studies to really begin to approach the fact of who he was. Because you can say it, but being conscious of it. Because many people say he's the son of Yahweh, or they'll say he's Yahweh in the flesh. But you really don't have a comprehension of that until you meet him and to realize that the Spirit of Yahweh is resting upon him. And you have to really study and come into an understanding of who God is and how can an infinite being be contained within a physical presence. So I realized at that point I got a whole lot of studying to do, because who I thought Yahweh was, that's not really who he was.